tal amigos? ¿Cómo están? Antonio Hernández de Flip Latino, Legendarios, nuestro podcast. Hoy tengo el placer de tener a un gran amigo y no solamente amigo, mentor, y ha hecho un montón de propiedades. Mark Ainley, price is what you get. That's one of your phrases. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you here in Flip Latino. I know you've done a lot of stuff. You know, you being an investor, you've been doing management for a long time. 20 years renovated properties. But tell me, how did you start it?
How I started. So I started wanting to have a career on Wall Street.
Okay.
Only because Hollywood makes it look so glamorous.
Right.
And when I got out of high school in 99, things started, the whole internet, things started that were happening on Wall Street in person, moved to the internet, and that kind of went away. And I was advised by a couple of people I know, it's like, don't do it. It's stressful. It's not worth it. Everything's going online. Life's changing. So I kind of went into computers, and I got lost of like, just .com and a place in Schaumburg. I was the first one out of all my friends, and 2-bedroom condo. And I lived there, and my friends were getting, like, for whatever reason, maybe they weren't working enough, maybe they got out of their house.
Okay.
And they had nowhere to go. So they would come, and they would come to my house, and I would I charge them rent. And it wasn't even, at first it wasn't even like, all right, this is an investment. It was like, you can't live here for free, man.
Sure, yeah.
So there was a point probably about where I was sleeping on the couch, and I had both rooms rented out to friends, and I was positive cash flow for the place. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
I'm like, this is it. Like, Wall Street, screw computers right now and their technology. And said, I'm going to buy 100 units. Like, that was really how it started.
So, that's when everybody, sometimes it's an aha moment, no? And you say, well, I think real estate is the way to go. So how do you realize, more into it, and how you went, into buying all these properties?
Well, I think you just have multiple aha moments in hindsight, how off they might have been with the previous ones. But so shortly after I bought that first condo and had that first aha moment, I went to his house in Rolling Meadows, and he lived in an apartment that they're going to convert these to condos. So back in the early 2000s, they were taking all these apartment buildings. But he said that it was basically a sheet that they slid in. Hey, if you buy this today, you start marketing it publicly, we're going to pay $99,000. Good job. And my W-2 brain at that point was like $10,000. Like, that's 25% of my annual earnings. Like, sure. I can make it like that. All I got to do is buy this place. So I found a way, I put 3.5% down, getting loans, sure. But bought that place, and that was taking the book on that one. So after that, but.
Do you think, thinking different, like, you probably have friends that, did you start thinking differently when all this come up, starting real estate?
Yes. I think I was always thinking differently, even being 18, 19, reading and Donald, his books were like,
yeah.
But that was, I figure out how to think differently. It wasn't directly like I wanted to think differently. I wanted to understand what other people were thinking. That was more of like, the mentality of someone that's done it, that's been wealthy. That was my mindset. But, quickly, when you're 20, even your young 20s, you start realizing out of your friends who have ambition or not. And I gravitated to one of my friends at that point that ultimately together and all that. But that's who I ended up spending majority of my time with, because we would be thinking business, thinking money. Back then you're thinking very material.
Sure.
But to get material, to buy those things, you need to figure out how to solve the problem of not having money. So sure. We were always thinking about that early on. But it was with that one friend. So I kind of, I had my friends I had fun with, and I had my friends that I did business with, and that's probably still today. I just have less friends that.
So it's true that when they say it depends who you hang out with, and how you're gonna become. Whether you're rich or poor, or you hanging out with the guys who get drunk all the time, or the guys who actually make money.
Yeah, no, I think it's 100% true then. And it's 100% true now on a different level. You and me were talking before we hit record,
sure,
about masterminds and being around being around people in masterminds, and you got your mastermind. Being around the right people that have the right attitude, like the amount of value you get from that, or the amount of energy synergy that you get, sure, is huge. Like, they say you're the average of the 5 people around you. Even then, just the level of conversation you have. I hate small talk. If I'm able to get in and have a conversation and be curious and understand what they're doing, why they're thinking that, it's being around the right people 100%, whether you're 20 and avoiding the friends that are going to take you out all night long, or today where you're spending your networking hours. So
yeah, it's your inspiration to be better. Or, I mean, your dad, your mom, usually the family around you. But who was your mentor starting as a young guy?
To start off, Yahoo at first, and that was really, I grew up on the side that didn't have all the money.
Okay.
So it really burned my bridges about I'd save up all the money, sell baseball cards, shovel, whatever it might be, to buy a basketball jersey or a football jersey. And then I show up with that, and then like the other kids in school, they bought 3 more of that. They got 3 more given to me. So what that ultimately motivated me to do, because today I'm very like, material things really are not big to me.
Sure.
But what's big to me is having options. I love to be able to wake up and say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I don't want to do that. Or, if there's something that we have to do around the family, be able to do those things. But so having options is a big thing. As far as people goes, I think I've always gravitated towards just successful people, just like, Benjamin Franklin, like anyone that has done the deep thinking and solve problems in the world and been better for it. So
I know you were in some of the I think CNBC programs. How do you learn that? Because we were talking about that, and how do you got into it?
Well, I remember back in early for these like Flipping Boston, one of those shows. The show ultimately I was on Bigger Pockets, and somebody reached out to me about another show that they're cooking up, and that show was successful for they during the interview of like to be on this other show, we just kind of were they're like, we'll find you something else. Very excited at first, and but I'm happy in hindsight. It's ruined reality TV for me altogether, because it's like, I know that was staged, and now I recognize like different scenes, like like you weren't wearing that 2-second things like that they create in there. Like it ends up being reality TV.
I mean, did it change something in your business as a person?
Well, so the whole show was around successful. He was, so he kind of mentored me and Brian, and through our stage of our company we're in. So what we took from the show was really a great mentorship, who we could still reach out to today if we have issues. But so it really helped us kind of break down, because whether it aired or not, we talked a lot about a business off the air, and we talked about he went through what his obstacles were at the point we were at, and helped us really kind of take it to the next level.
So you think, to have a mentor or somebody who already did, what you're trying to do, it's a good thing. I mean, that's what happened. But what do you think?
Time, right? We could all today. There's no point in time where things have been easier to figure out and go after on your own. But what I realize as I'm into my 40s now is, if people always ask, if you go do it again, what would you do differently? And it's like, I would do the exact same thing, but I would reduce the time frame it took me to get here.
Sure.
And to reduce the time frame, you have to figure out the problems you're going to counter 2 years from today. And having a mentor, that's what you're doing. They're coaching you, they're mentoring you to be able to see a point. You don't know what you don't know. That's the biggest obstacle we have in any sort of business, real estate especially. Markets as well too. If you haven't in 2012, 13, only really seen good times, right? So to understand what bad times look like, how do people just don't know. So yes, having mentors, I think, is a huge way to reduce your time trying to accomplish.
How many properties have you done? As you started doing condos. What kind of business model do you guys start doing?
So that first one I bought in Rolling Meadows, I put bad tenant in there, filed for eviction. Like, I learned everything. Into that one, I had an aha moment of like, I'm not going to be a landlord in one property. I'm like, I'm not gonna be a landlord. I'm just gonna be a realtor and sell to other people. But ultimately, I got back into it pretty quickly. But the one thing that we did early on to learn the flipping was we would as a broker, we'd find a property, we'd rehab the property, and so offline make some money. And that was a big thing for us that we did up until the crash. And then we were doing a couple of flips on our own at that point. But then after the crash, we did a lot of BRRRR strategy properties. We did between 08 and 18, we did learned there. But we did that where at the time we thought the market was way more competitive, and we didn't think we thought spent growing the property management, which along that time frame, the property management company was growing. But we took a lot of the money we made doing those. We sold a lot of those turnkey. We still manage a lot of those industrial. So right now, today, we basically have two investment vehicles. One, industrial properties.
Okay.
And then, Class A, B rentals that will DuPage and Kane County.
In 2008, you mentioned 2008. I went through 2008 and we lost everything, and we rebuilt it. How do you, how do you manage to, to stay on top of the business, or what happened?
I had a few things that really whacked me in 2008. Was I was building a brokerage at that time,
Okay.
and we had. My way to get the brokerage is going back to all my buddies that were not working. Days from now, you could have your real estate license. And, I made X amount of dollars last year, and you could do that easily too. So I got a bunch of my friends to get into the business. But, real estate, once you get in the business, usually your first year or two is selling to your immediate network and your friends and family. And that dried up pretty quick. So I remember There's this day, my partner was standing there. He's like, "Where is everyone?" And we ultimately lost like eight or nine agents that we were expecting to help make us money for the new building we just built out. So we got burned with that, and we did a sale leaseback on that building. But those I have were the three I got caught with in the downturn. They were horrible in the moment. Like, I spent probably 3 years being about $1,100 out of pocket at a time when I didn't have $1,100 out of pocket, just to make sure I saved my credit and I didn't damage my reputation at that point. So we got whacked there. And then obviously, I think there's a point in November 2000, and I had 30% financing type stuff. And by the end of that month, I had one. And now, if going back in hindsight, that one deal, I probably did whatever I could to keep together so I could pay next month's mortgage. So, and be scrappy, which is something that I think any entrepreneur, you have to have this level of scrappiness to really kind of get through those times, to get through the early years. So,
do you think any entrepreneur should reinvent themselves? Often. I know you've been through a lot of stuff. I've been through a lot of stuff, and every day is gotta be a new day, right? Just reinvent yourself.
I think that what I've realized in myself is it's okay to be wrong about something that you were pretty adamant about years before. And whether it be new experiences or not that I went through to change my mindset of where I was at, I think that's look like to us is it's not even say us, for me personally, is I think every 5 years you look back, and so I look at it this way: if every 5 years you look back and there's not something that you're like, dude, I can't believe I did that, and maybe there's things I look back, so it's like, so, but what it takes is a lot of people where I think they fail is and if they thought this was it, and it's a pride thing, right?
Yeah.
But to be humble and be able to say, that strategy didn't make that much sense, and now this is kind of where I'm at based on what I know. I think that's where the growth and that's where the reinvention comes, because every day we're getting a little smarter. We learn something every day. So to be able to recognize that and be able to bring that out in yourself, I think that's the true growth part.
You talk about reputation and credit. How important is in this business, especially real estate?
Yeah. So I think I'll answer that two different parts. Credit is basically your digital reputation.
Okay.
And it follows you everywhere and affects you everywhere. Now it affects you with insurance.
Sure.
And I don't think that's going to change. There's always talks about reform about that, but I don't think that's going to change. And when it's you, they don't know anything about you. They know your payment history. And to be borderline obsessive about it is what you have to do. Nowadays you have these tools like Credit Karma and stuff like that, where I go on there, everything's good, and if going on there also makes you realize, like, oh man, I'm paying. But so that's your digital reputation.
Okay.
In real life, the second part, your reputation together right now, if we didn't think that we were good people,
sure,
to say lightly, I guess, if you didn't have some level of trust in what I'm about to say here, if you weren't confident I was going to make you look bad on here, we wouldn't be sitting here. And that's a reputation that I think is the hardest to earn early on for investors, but it ends up just coming through doing things. So
Yeah, no, no, it's a great answer, because people it's not important, especially when you're doing real estate. And I always say, it's sometimes better than money, because you can find people with money, but to check your credit, always gonna follow you.
I have a buddy that said to me, he went from having bad credit to good credit. And what motivated him was the moment when he knew someone was going to run their credit, that feeling he had in there. He's like, my motivation was getting rid of that feeling versus what he has today. He's cleaned everything up, that level of pride, right?
Yeah.
If you look at your credit score as a level of pride, you might.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that, sometimes, when we tell people, well, I don't know, then, you say, oh, well, because when you have a good credit, you say, yeah, it's fine, run it and, it'll be okay. But that's a lot of truth on it.
And credit is relatively easy to fix, but it takes time. So if anyone listening right now, if you have anything on there, like start today, because the faster you start cleaning that up or making those things look better.
How, in bigger deals, like if you're buying a multi-unit, I don't know, 10, 20 units or something industrial, how do the lenders sees you there,
So part is the bigger deals you go, it's more about the building than it is that. But no matter what, the banks, whether it be what they need for their just for their process
risk assessment.
Yeah. Like I know our bank, we bank with Midland. That's one of our bigger ones that holds a lot of our debt every July. And I hate it because it ends, but every July, and now I lock my credit report.
Sure.
So it's a pain in the butt. But yeah, every they're going to run it every year. So if anything, I've seen where it's like, hey, you showed up when you bought a building, you did something stupid with your, or you did something. Now all of a sudden the bank's coming back and wanting more in reserves and stuff like that. So it's not going away no matter what.
Is it worth it, to not make a payment? If you're in this business, I mean, sometimes, I forgot, all these excuses. Is that worth it, especially if you're running this kind of business?
If you have on your credit, or accidents happen, right? Or
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. And it's like, you do whatever you can to call that credit company, and you can negotiate those things off. Like if it's your first time, you're late, I didn't get the bill went to the wrong ad, whatever it might be. Like you put all your energy into solving that problem. One thing that I've always done is I keep my credit card payments or anything I have on automated payment. So it's like worst $9 gets paid, and maybe I didn't pay the full amount. I get whacked for some bit or whatever. But as long as that is on, then you're good.
Talking about properties, how many do you guys do management? What do you guys do most? You still doing investing? You're still doing, you're doing more of the management?
A little both. So I mean, my full time, what I do during the day is I run our sales and marketing team.
Okay.
But the cool thing. So the one thing I like about real estate is there's so many ways to make money.
Sure.
And people get closer. There's so many verticals to real estate investing that you could be in, whether it be property management or it be running some sort of service business, trashing out places, plumbing.
Realtor.
Realtor, take you one step removed, insurance, and stuff like that. So there's so much opportunity to be close to it. And that's probably the biggest benefit is I talk to clients my marketing department is a podcast that talks about, I meet people that have off-market deals all week long. So having that kind of the two blend together is the biggest advantage that I think I have, or anyone that has a similar type setup. But yeah, so we're managing right now 1,400 market of industrial. That is my baby.
Do you guys do it for bigger investors, or can a new investor can do a management with you guys?
Our biggest value add, I think, to anybody, there's a lot of property management companies like, I could do it cheaper than you could do it. It's like,
Sure.
You can do it cheaper than I could do it for you, but they're not accounting for their time. They're not. Yeah. Where we get hired a lot is the people that's like, all right, I want to keep growing my portfolio hours a month doing this with the management when I could be out looking for properties or driving for dollars or whatnot. Or my kid's now in soccer, and I'd rather be there on Saturday versus going to the 3-flat and doing that stuff. So that, and then the other thing that I think property manager is great for is somebody that has trouble with the stress or risk around investing. think about how many times you've heard someone on the property and I'm out, right? Think about you exist almost like this is your, like you exist to show people the path of if somebody can't take that stress about it, they need someone. And so I think buying back your time and having somebody that doesn't want the stress, that's where I think a company like ours really, that's our pitch. That's how we go after people.
Okay. So, I mean, people will want property, 2 properties, up to whatever they have, right?
From condos to our biggest building we manage is a 56 unit. So, in Geneva. So,
how do you, how do you find these people?
A lot of it's networking.
Okay.
Investor.
Investor.
We have the podcast. We have a website that's like you pumping out content all the time for investors that they at least get familiar with the brand, and we try to give away free stuff that will add value to people to get them to sign up. But yeah, no, it's a reputation. 20 years.
Yeah. I see each other. How do you start the podcast? What was the idea? How do you, become? I mean, we're talking right now, my podcast that I started recently, but you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, 5 years. We just celebrated 5 years last month. But you know what? So I said before, we did all these 482 Burr properties between. I learned so much. I made so many mistakes. I always say I made $1,000. When we came back and started focusing on the property management side, called me up. We kind of went after on the south side right away, and I was helping them. Hey, I know you see that, and this is what you should do. And I was helping a lot of people, but my reach was pretty limited. So I could only really I was really only talking to 5 or 10 people that could use my help a week.
Sure.
And I got a text one day. This was February 2000. And it was from Tom that we're managing for. So my podcast and it was a text in Bartlett, at Stearns and Bartlett Road, and it said, "How about Wolfie Roads?" I'm like, "All right." Called him. I'm like, "That guy." So we'll do city and sub, and let's do it. So right away, that's how I was born, and that's been something that's 5 years.
And this one is not something that you take lightly, right? Because it's consistently, right? You need to record every week or something, But how do you like it,
When we early on, we started before COVID, but when we actually launched, we were in COVID. So we spent the first 2.5 years in Zoom, and the Zoom part started getting
okay.
It's so hard to engage. Like maybe you and me are engaging
sure.
now. It's hard for me to focus, and the evolution to have building out a studio, which I'll give props to our editor, our producer. He's the one that's basically like, hey, if you want to keep growing this, like you got to get with the times. Like, let's do a studio, let's do this, let's get the 4K cameras, like you guys got. Yeah. Let's do those things. And so that brought it in there. And our goal initially was like, hey, let's just do this, and that'll justify the cost for spending. Before we knew what we were doing, and what I realized right away was this time when I'm recording a podcast, and it's here too. This is the only time like I am not distracted.
Focus.
I was distracted before we started, right?
Yeah.
I'm focused, right? I'm engaged, curious, in person. There's a camaraderie. We take the pictures afterwards. We shake hands. We hug. Like there's such a huge piece of that building that relationship and that rapport. And that about a year ago gave me an entire my energy towards it. And it's been huge. It's been fun. And I don't know how you guys are, but we run in cycles where it's like, oh no, we have 2 left. We got oh no, we have 10. We got to stop recording. So we I always having enough on the board, so we know it's not urgent. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking, because for now, I wasn't the guy who talks to everybody, but now I'm curious, I want to know stuff, So and this is, because you can focus and you can start talking to people and say, oh, okay, and you learn, you learn from them. Straight Up Chicago, is your podcast. Is this helping your business? Is something that somebody else, should do?
Yeah, I did a podcast episode for a residential property. Episode was going to be about how a podcast has helped my business. So that forced me to sit down and really write it out of how only last year. So, but what I really came to was there's a huge level of authority that it helps me with. The power of the networking piece, the ability to use the platform for, right now we get included in, they're trying to put rent control in, they're trying to do that. So we get included in all those conversations because they want us to blast that out there,
Sure.
right? We end up being the voice of stopping reform. So that's the circles we've been putting for, is that super valuable for recruiting. My business development guy, he's, what I use the podcast for all the time is something I haven't done yet that I want to do. I'll say it on there. Like, I'm going to put out a job ad for so-and-so next month. And now it's like, is it? But now it's like, I said it out loud. I said it to, I gotta go do it.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the benefits still has not shown itself yet. One thing I was wrong about, and this is one of those things about, you look back 5 years and we're starting, like, talk about how many episodes should we do? How many think we should go to? And I'm like, well, we're going to run out of people. There's not enough people. Like, I was so naive to realizing how many people I didn't know. So when I say that myself, but we're not running out of people to interview. Which I have a guy, and all those people I'm meeting, it's all one big network here. You know how it is. Even in the national level of real estate, it's one big network. And if you could get in like what you're doing, like, it's huge. So.
I don't know. I think what you guys are doing here in Chicago is, great because people need information, and the right information, because it's a lot of, bad. But I think, what you guys are doing is very good, and like you say, when I started, I don't know anybody, I don't know a lot of people, but then you start going through, and then, like you said, power of network, somebody else will know somebody, and then, you connect, right?
The one thing we realized that made our life easier was whenever we had a guest on, we'd say, hey, do you know someone else that would be a good guest? 3 people. It's like, okay, good. We're good. To make introductions.
Sure.
Which now that took a level of like, oh, I'm a good guest. The other thing about that is benefited too is just in conversations. It's not sometime. Now all of a sudden you're going to start talking to me about whatever else you do, but it's a good kind of opening kind of couple lines to maybe incorporate someone.
Would you say to, there's some people who start, investing. What would you say to them, because some people, especially with the times now, right now, they don't know what to do. They don't know how the market is going to turn, is still a good time to invest.
And there's, you hear, it's like, interest rates are just a number. No one's ever like, I'm going to wait to see where insurance rates go. Or no one's ever like, I'm going to wait and see, what the local water. So when you take interest rates off the table of being like a reason, that opens up so much opportunity. It's just inside your pro forma that you have to figure out.
Sure.
So interest, and the cool thing is interest rates are, if they go higher, you're locked in, right? That's one of the benefits of real estate. You could hedge against inflation, so you're locking in. So if it went to 8, you'd be good at. It goes down, you could probably, and you're holding against it. So it's like, sure, you get the benefits of both sides when it comes to interest rates. So I often tell people, like, just stay out of their numbers. If it goes down, if it makes sense, you're perfect. Refinance is a math problem always. Like, does it make sense? So, but as far as, I think the other opportunity you have right now is real estate investing's gotten tough. It's tougher to obviously get the right financing. It's tougher to make the work. It's tougher to find the inventory. So that means that's forced a lot of people to just stop doing it. Or now that it's hard, the lazy people or the less aggressive people have pulled back. They might still have Redfin download. At the same time, that realtor that was helping them has probably doing as much business as well. Maybe they got a part-time gig. So now what's left is the people that are actually really started to find a deal, which is almost normal times. Like right now is more normal you've experienced the last 5-6 years. So if you can make it in normal times, that is, and you'll only do in the good times.
How do you see the market, these days in terms of, like I said, inventory, in terms of, finding fix and flips or finding properties for rent? Still people finding those?
2 different areas. So specifically here in Chicago, there's no inventory because we haven't built anything. I was putting together a presentation for something else I'm doing tomorrow, and I put a slide in there about what was different about 2008. And the biggest thing about 2008 was there was 13,000 plus communities going up around the Chicago market. I moved into one of them. They're building 1,144 homes, and the amount right now in the Chicago, which created this, people are moving from their stuff and all that. These communities are building right now are so little. And right now, a lot of the investors that bought in the last 10 years, when they sell, owner-occupied people, because numbers don't make sense mostly on the investor side. So you're taking one additional house out of the rental inventory. So I think that is just lack of housing, and it makes it harder to find that house. And you're probably looking at the older house, and you have to put some money into it. But that's where the sweet spot is right now. The rest of the country, as I know you work around the country, Sun Belt, South. Like I have friends down there in Birmingham, friends in Texas, friends in Florida. They're kind of at this level of like 2022 pricing, this price drops and all that, but they have so much inventory. They built so much down there. They built so many apartment complexes. You're seeing a lot of guys in the Sun Belt right now that are suffering.
Sure.
But think about this here in the Chicago market. You know, in Naperville or Downers, like you see these apartment complexes going up, but the amount it costs, $350 to $3 compared to the same town, you're actually paying less or just a couple bucks more for that single family for that apartment. Which means the person, it's totally different classification of who's going to live in those two places. So that they're actually putting in there is not even something everyone wants at this point.
New construction, and we're doing some new constructions. And do you think people should invest in or start doing new construction? Because usually the investor who already done a lot of flips, and the next steps to go into new construction, right? Because you're putting $200,000 into a building in Chicago, that's all. You should go into a new house, right? How do you see the market?
Well, similar to I love it. And I think my thought is always these edge suburbs or the edge counties here in Chicago that I think there's so much opportunity. Land is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
No one's chasing it. And a lot of these villages, whether it be out in Kane County or Will County, are a heck of a lot more flexible or amendable versus trying to do something in a city. And I think there's so much opportunity, whether it be to build a small multi or to build, because you get away with some of the word get away, but the code enforcement or the codes are not as strict in Oswego versus Chicago.
Yeah.
You could put, you don't even need wire. You do, they're not requiring sprinklers like Des Plaines or Palatine's doing now. So what you could get per square foot on these rural suburbs, and that's where you can make the affordability. People that, growing up around here, everyone's just kind of moved west. Everyone's just kind of moved west because of affordability, and that's why you keep expanding and all that, because affordability. You can't build that over here, and if you don't, opportunity, I think, but it just takes the due diligence.
It's people, I seen some people are building, single families, 2 stories, and I seen people, a lot of people. I seen a lot of new construction and just, a ranch. What do you see? What are you seeing? On the trend? Is people now buying? The people who are retiring. Are they buying? Single families ranch, or what do you see?
Due to lack of demand, or due to demand, they're taking what they can. So that's why it kind of goes into if you build it, they will come moment. And I'm speaking specific here in the Chicago market.
Sure.
You have a lot of people that are building the 5 flats and under because it's sometimes easier to get the owner out and some of that stuff. But no, a lot of people are living, or they're renewing reluctantly because they don't have a single family they can afford out there, or they don't have to upgrade to a 2-bedroom versus a 1-bedroom because it's just not there, or the price is not there. So
now that you're talking, how do you see in terms of people renting? Is there more people coming? Is there more people looking to rent because of affordability?
Yeah, definitely. So last year and this year are, people every year, they either renew their lease or they move out. And we track both those. Obviously, they're both revenue numbers for us. And the amount of people that have renewed the last 2 years has been up high single digits the last 2 years versus the previous 2 years. And that's because they don't have anywhere to go. Or they're waiting for someone to come up, or there's people that are leased because they might find their house or whatever. So they're sticking around longer. And then I think people are renting more often as well too, just because the younger, coming out of every so often you get people 2 or 3 or 4 buddies that get together. That's cool. That's always going to be. But the options to live at home versus go rent somewhere are less.
Do you think after 2020, after COVID, people start liking more to live in a private house or whatever they can find?
I think that was a short-term adjustment. Some of the neighborhoods like Magnificent Mile and all that have suffered, I think, longer because people want to move out of there and they moved roads. But I don't think that's all that did right there. Shorten the time frame of where they're going to move. They're going to live in multifamily and they're going to either move to just shorten that time frame, which ultimately end up being why we're in that one ways to buying. But again, there was enough inventory for the new renters come in, so it's kept.
What do you think? In the next year or so, will be the demand on fixing to rent, new construction. What's the trend? I mean, do you have an idea?
Well, I think we're in the market now where if you're gonna break this down, fix and flip, it's really hard to do it without having a six-figure rehab budget. It's getting harder to do that to create the value. You have to find something that needs a lot of work. Even the off-market stuff is like the off-market stuff I'm seeing is I've lived there for 40 years and I haven't done anything. It's all in good shape, but everything's got to be touched. And the new build, I think there's just going to be continued that opportunity. So I think just the struggle to make the deal work is going to push more people into new partner in new. So a guy this morning today, he's done buying the existing. He just wants to go figure out how to build it. But that's kind of over time soon. Burr is a tougher one to get done. That is buying these, but back in the day, the goal was to leave no money in the deal, right? And now I'm settling with if I get single digit 8-9%, I'm happy.
Sure.
Which is a good investment vehicle right away. I think the bigger part right now is the equity you're creating versus the money you have to leave in. So for the 8%, I might have to leave. I have either an exit strategy or just something that's going to grow.
Yeah. So and I mean, you said right. A lot of people are looking for this Burr method, but they just buying something that is already done, and I mean. Don't add up, right? But if you buy something cheap, fix it, and then you create equity, then you're much better, right?
I mean, the Burr strategy, a lot of people look at it as less money down, and that is one of the things that vehicle takes you on. But it's bigger about that equity. When you're done and it appraised out you bought it for $250 and you put $50 into it, and now it appraised for $380, like. That's huge.
Yeah.
Even if you have to leave 20 grand into, you still have So yeah, no, that's the equity is bigger than the lack of down payment. And I know a lot of people that are listening right to put down in the deal, and I think I most often with that is they'll flip a house 8-9%, and then be able to keep that the next deal that they'll hold using the means to be able to hold more.
Yeah, and that's what we teach, in the Latino market, buy something cheap, force the equity, and then, you can sell it, or you can, buy refinance it. And that way, you're just not getting the cash flow, you're getting, as you're leaving some. Mark, how do you see the foreclosure, rates, and, how do you see is a wave of foreclosures coming? I mean, we're kind of in a recession, not recession, but how do you see, there is something shifting?
I've seen more in the last 60 days, more short sales.
Okay.
And that's basically sellers that every situation I've seen where people that refinance to 2023 and they just got very aggressive appraisals done. And now it's like and all that stuff. I got to bring 25 grand to the table. So short sales are back and they're real. On the REO side, I'm not sure about how the pipeline looks, but I do know on HUD homes, on HUDhome.gov, failed VA loans. Inventory on there has been creeping up over the last couple of years.
Okay.
And VA loans, when you get a VA loan, I'm most positive you don't have to put anything down.
It's 100%, right?
Yeah, it's 100%. So I don't know what the time frame is that. Now, VA, I know the foreclosure go through on the VA side.
Okay.
So those are always in a little worse condition. Real stuff that's going on, or the pipeline and what that looks like. But those are the two kind of indicators I see that there's.
Yeah, and that's it should an investor see foreclosure or short sales as opportunities to start investing again.
Oh yeah, the one thing I liked about short sales back in 2008 was you put it under contract, tie it up, and see if you they don't approve it or they change one term, you get back out. So yeah. I know at one point we had a strategy of having like 9 or 10 short sales at any, just to have flow in the pipeline under
Sure.
contract. So yeah, it's definitely an opportunity. And I think a short sale right now is, so a lot of people, a short sale is a better version of an REO because it's usually in better condition. You're usually getting the place that, it's been, someone's been living, it's keeping the place clean, leaks.
Yep.
So I think there's huge opportunity when it comes to short sales.
What do you tell, the Chicago market is tough market, and people always start to, trying to get into investing. You think they should be educated or just go and do stuff? I mean, we done it without the education, it cost us, what would you tell them?
Well, first off, the Chicago market is the competitive advantage we all have. A lot of people don't come into the Chicago market because they're scared. They read the headlines. They think they're just going to get off. As much as it might make us angry, advantage. That keeps people out. I always say there's like a moat around Chicago that people just don't want to come into Chicago because of all the stuff you got to deal with. So that's a competitive advantage. And then on the other side, with the education, it goes back to that timeline. If you want to get to where you want to go faster, then you need to be mentored, or you need to get the education to be able to reduce the amount of every mistake that you make as a real estate investor does one or two things or both. It either costs you time or costs you money, and most of the time it's both. So if you're able to reduce the time and money you're spending on these mistakes, shorten your timeline to get where you want to go.
Do you have a book, a favorite podcast that you listen that you can recommend? Obviously, straight up Chicago, right?
Yeah, no. My favorite that was huge. I didn't realize it till a couple months ago, but it really is always in the back of my head. It's called Snowball. It's a biography on Warren Buffett, and it doesn't relate so much to real estate, but it's all about the compounding effect of money.
Okay.
And our ability to we realize how much I regretted selling so much of the property that I sold in my system, but to sell less because the compounding effect. Like I said before, my best rentals were the ones I got stuck with 2008 because I have 2 times equity and I'm making $1,500. So it's a huge flip side on that. So that and Psychology of Money that really breaks down money. And it's one of those books that I wish I would have read when I was 20. So I recommend.
Any podcasts that you listen?
I love the podcast Founders. So Founders it goes over books.
Okay.
The guys in there, you got Oil Tycoon, you got everything. But
yeah, I think I've seen it. Yeah.
And it goes back to me saying, I want to be in the mindset of where other successful people have been. You get at the mastermind all day. So if I'm listening to something, I want to be hearing what other people are thinking. And sometimes that encourages me, that podcast to actually. But he really breaks it down. It's presented well, that podcast.
Do you think that people should invest in the BRRRR method other than just, flipping or both?
I think to me, flipping is also a job. I think differently, but the long-term, however you do it, whether it be BRRRR or traditional, and like we said before, if you need to do the flips to be able to get some money for the to keep in the deal that your BRRRR, like that's great. That's a means to an end, and you'll learn a lot. So there's value in both, but there's a lot of people I know that that's all they do is flip, and 10 years later they're looking in the rearview, they're like, man, that's more like I just have I've just created a job and I've paid a lot of taxes.
Like you say, where's the money?
Yeah.
If you don't put something on the side, you're gonna spend it.
Yeah.
And doing the people sometimes question which one is better, on the short term or long term. Which one you think people should do if they should starting, or if they're already doing it, and can they start with flips and then go to a rental, or how do they should go about it?
Yeah, so we've been wanting to do flips for doing more, I guess, right? So we look at a lot of stuff on a weekly basis, and my answer to you would be more of take what the market's going to give you. Don't do a million flips and hold nothing, but if there's opportunities to make some quick whacks of $125,000 or whatever, take advantage of that, because you don't know when that will show itself again. And worst case scenario, you make. So I think if the market or your network is creating opportunities for you to flip, run with it, and then be able to take that to be able to either, some of that money you might take to flip might go to paying off some stupid stuff.
What do you think or what do you want your legacy to be? Whether you're doing a podcast, whether teaching other people, what do you want that to be?
We get a lot of people that will write in and say thank you, or it was because of you I was motivated to do it, or we started with nothing and now we have 17 units.
Sure,
that's huge. So we didn't talk about that before, but that's a huge reward out of doing the show, and I love being part of someone else's journey and being able to help them get to where they want to go faster, and that is what that legacy means to me. Because honestly, no one's going to remember me 9 months after I die. But I know right now what makes me feel good. And if I can do that on a larger level within my family, he's 13 and he's getting into all this stuff, and being able to do some of that stuff with him and have him shortcuts. But ultimately, I feel the only way I can establish a longer timeline of a legacy is to build stuff.
Yeah.
So we talked about new construction before. Like, if I build some Six Flags right now, they'll be here 200 years from now, sure. Most likely, right? And that's probably the only. And I look at buildings, the old area. It's like, hey, that guy, like, this guy made some. I think the only way to really to create true legacy is to be able to just have impact on other people's lives or buildings.
Sure. No, that's a great answer, because everybody thinks that it's about money. At some point it is, but then it becomes something else, right? It becomes something that you want to do, right? What do you, or how do you define, success right now versus, 10 years ago?
The ability to look back at the end of the day, knowing I did what I should have done to the fullest extent. And I'll break that down a little, is every day, especially as option, but did I grow? Did the company grow? Did my team grow? Did my account grow? Like, did I do everything did I take advantage of the opportunity that I had that day? And it might just be on micro things. Did I call the guy back call the wholesaler back and not do those things? So I up on a daily basis, because I know that ends up adding up to be what I look back in on a monthly basis.
That's do you think mentality, you can grow the mentality, come with it, as the time goes by, your mentality is growing?
I think your mindset is a direct correlation to your ambitions. You'll never grow that mindset if your ambitions aren't big enough, or if you there's not something out there you want for whatever reason, purpose, journey. So it's all tied to that. Someone doesn't have the mindset or doesn't want to do it, it ties back to the negative word sometimes, but just lack of desire. Not everyone wants to do what you and me wake up every morning wanting to go take on the world, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. But never think the way that you, and likewise, we'll never understand why they're okay letting, I might word it as letting this short life we have go by.
Other than, Straight Up Chicago, the management company, what else do you guys, working on? What's cooking?
So right now we're working on really just growing the resident experience and the client experience. So, going back to kind of what makes me feel good is like, yes, we could say we do all these things and this is what we charge for them and all that stuff, but there's a value in how you feel when we text you.
Sure.
There's a value of how you feel or when you get a new text. You just send you over the lease, or we could celebrate the moment with a message or something like that. And the resident and our client side at GC. And that's cool because for me, because we're back to we're moments in these place that we're providing for 1 to 10 years maybe.
Sure.
And to build, and they're having babies in that place. They're having people pass away in those places. They're having in their time while they're there. And to be able to, I think is something that it's too easy to look past. And you do those things right, though, then the money comes, right? Things right, you make people feel good, right? The saying, you don't remember what people said, but you remember how they made you feel.
Yeah.
And that is something that we try to, and the funny thing is, we're trying to systematize that, right? As feelings, systematize moments.
Yeah.
And you can do that to a extent point, but you have to actually have people that care. And we do have a team that cares. So that's what we're working on at GC. And then the investment side, it's just figuring out how to adjust to finding properties faster.
Yeah. And I think that's important, we'll say in real estate, right? If you're going to rent, and that property, so how they going to feel, people going to feel. Do you think, I mean, people sometimes cut corners, do you think what's the most important? For me, it's important, that people secure, all the things that are, it's some important to, investors to see.
That was a blind spot I had the first 10 years of my career.
Okay.
In the back. Why put the second floodlight on the fixture? Why put the storm door on the front back? Why make sure the place is lit up? Why not take those big bushes that someone could be hiding? Like all those things were like cost savings to me early on. And I realized through the management side of things that, man, people are scared. And I also realized that through raising my own family, I want to protect these people.
Sure.
And that was something that really came near and dear to me over the years of like safety. And if anything, people probably care more. Maybe they don't realize it. They care more about the safety than they do if it's black. And if you can not get that, then you're able to put that floodlight in the back. You won't get it rented any faster, but they might stay longer. They might call 3 times less. They might think highly of you higher of you as a landlord and refer you out. Like, so I think there's a lot of value that's not necessarily on the surface when it comes to safety. And that's probably something that, right? You give someone a new amenity, it goes away pretty quickly, but safety is daily.
Yeah. So, that's, pretty interesting, to see in an investor, that 10 years ago it wasn't important. What changed, for you to understand that, safety was really important?
It's just hearing requests. I remember it's like, and I remember like going back and forth with the tenant, like, oh, why would we do that? Like, so I realized it's really easy to pick a rental out of a neighborhood because they don't have storm doors.
Okay.
But if you want to look at this, the storm doors, right? It's like you could push in a door, anybody for the door, trim and all that. But you can't do that with a storm door, especially the metal storm door. So, because now you're going reverse. But my own family, I think the concern my wife had than I am, like I really don't, I have a very low sentiment for but watching more of like I don't know if the right word is panic in her or fear. And then your kids too. Your kids are they're scared about monsters, scared about is the house going to burn down? They're scared about the storms that might come through. They're so sad. Like for me, it's like my heart like feels for them. It's like if there's anything I can control to take that fear or those concerns out of people in my life, like that's what I want to do.
So, Straight Up Chicago, where can we find, your information, Mark?
All right. So you could, podcasts on YouTube, you can watch them, or you could iTunes or Spotify. If you want to reach out to me direct, Mark Ainley, REI on Instagram, or you can find LinkedIn. I'm always pretty responsive. Mark, it was a pleasure to have you here. We could keep talking and, we'll find something to Flip Latino. I'm pretty sure, people will find interesting, to know, how the other side thinks, the investor, the management side, So Straight Up Chicago, and you also have the management side? Yep, GC Realty and Development. If you come on out, GC Realty Inc., we have tons of resources on there. Whether it be, I actually have a webinar I did on there you can download. It's every mistake I made for the Burr. Hour and a half webinar of me just going through, it's a presentation, super valuable. Everything I didn't know what I didn't know, and every mistake I made, I document on there, even including a couple of $30,000 and $40,000 mistakes I made. So if you want, that might be something good talking about Burr. Great. No, thank you for coming. And, I'm pretty sure, we'll be in touch and a lot of stuff, Thank you. This is Flip Latino, Inversiones en tu idioma.